One of the most challenging things in today's day and age, especially as Israel is 8 months into the war, is what is our religious Torah perspective on war? How should we view the very harsh and difficult circumstance of going to war, needing to defend ourselves, God forbid, having to kill people, unfortunately civilians, which are never ever targeted by Israel, but sometimes caught in the attempt to save lives, release hostages, and kill terrorists. How do we put this into a spiritual Torah perspective? No parasha puts it into a spiritual perspective more clearly than this parasha Behaalotecha in two ways. The first one is the incredible one I heard from my colleague Rabbi Danny Mervis, about the mitzvah in this week's parasha to create, it says, chatzotzrot, that when we go out to war, there's the need to blow the two silver trumpets to gather the troops to go to war. So when the Jewish people goes to war, there's a mitzvah to sound the trumpets. The incredible thing, though, is in the very same mitzvah of sounding the trumpets, we see that it's the same trumpets that are used in the temple for service in the temple. Because the very next verse says, whenever you want to gather people during the offering of the sacrifices, the same trumpets are used for in the temple during the time of the sacrifices. The Rambam counts this as one mitzvah. The same trumpets which are used to gather people in the Beit HaMikdash in the time of the festivals is the same trumpets that are used indeed in the Beit HaMikdash. One mitzvah. So much so, Rav Moshe Feinstein says, he says that the mitzvah of the trumpets today do not apply in war because we don't have the trumpets of the Beit HaMikdash. The trumpets used in war have to be the trumpets used in the Beit HaMikdash. And I think we see an incredible principle from this. The principle that wars to be fought are of a spiritual endeavor. They are not something which are only for physical and security measures. They are something which stem from the deepest spiritual principles. When we go out to war, we have to know that the trumpets calling us to war are the same trumpets used in the Beit HaMikdash, because it's an extension of the service of Hashem, because ultimately the very difficult and harsh and tragic reality of war is the need to fight for our values, to defend the values that are most important to us. The same service of God of closeness to the divine is the same service to protect the values of the divine and the Jewish people that are lived out in the Beit HaMikdash and in the Holy Land. And nowhere is this clearer in arguably the most famous part of this week's parasha. We all know this. It's every single time we take out the Torah and put the Torah back. Listen to these two verses, because Rebbe in the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat 115 says that this is a book on its own. It's the only part of the Torah which is written in this week's parasha with inverted brackets. It's a bracketed verses, so much so that the Talmud says it's a book in and of itself. And this book, the first and last, the first two verses, are the very verses we say when we take out the Torah and when we put them back. What are we say? Vayehi bin So'aron, Vayomer Moshe, when we take out the Torah, and when we put back the Torah, we say, Uvnocho Yomar, Shuv Hashem, Hashem should return. The verses in this week's parasha saying that what is the Aron, Vayehi bin So'aron, Vayomer Moshe, when the Jewish people go out to war, they take the Aron HaKodesh out to war and they say, Kuma Hashem, vayafutzo evecha. Rise up, Hashem. Hashem, whose presence is in the, so to speak, in the Aron HaKodesh, and your enemy should be scattered. And when we come back from war, what do we say? Return, Shuva Hashem. Return, Hashem, Revot Yisrael. Hashem is going to war. Hashem is returning. It's the Jewish people. And from this incredible book within a book, we see that the essence of the Torah is that the values of Hashem that are defended in war are indeed not only the values of the Jewish people, not only the survival of the Jewish people, but the values that we believe in. I believe in a God who is good, a God who is moral, a God who has designated the Jewish people for an Or Laguyim, a moral and spiritual mission. And therefore the battles of the Jewish people are Milchamot Hashem, are those where Hashem's values are at stake. And that's what we see us say in conclusion. The barbaric war against warmongers, terrorists, who steal babies from their cribs, women and children which are still being held, grandparents, young children, boggles the mind. It is the barbaric, dark values of those who seek to uproot everything which is godly against those who portray the beauty and the godliness of life. May we all, and I just want to end and say that Rabbi Herschel Schechter, Shlita of the Rosh Yeshiva University, has said a number of occasions in the RCA Convention of Rabbis, and a number of times when we spoke to him, he said in his opinion, the mitzvah of defending the Jewish people today applies not only to everyone in Israel and to yeshiva students. It applies to every child above the age of 20 in Chutz La'aretz, that if we are needed to go to Israel and if the army needs us, every person from the age of 20, in his opinion, should now go for Milchemet mitzvah if that's what is needed, because we are called upon to defend the values of Hashem. May Hashem bless us, have mercy on all of us, have mercy on our people, to Bezrat Hashem, that as we fight for the values of godliness and goodness, may it be with mercy. May the war end in a way that all the hostages return, all our soldiers are well, and indeed the values of life and light are furthered in Hashem's world.